Welcome to the AI Corner. I'm your host, Mike Bailey, here to spotlight the people shaping New Zealand's AI future. In today's episode, we're speaking with Bex Rose and Sam Gibson. Bex is the owner of AI Surge ANZ, and she's leading the charge in bringing AI into education, empowering both teachers, leaders, and also students across New Zealand and Australia to navigate the AI revolution with confidence. Sam is an education technology leader at Noel Leeming Commercial and is Google certified as an innovator. He combines 12 years of teaching experience with a passion for transforming learning environments and driving student success. Welcome to the pod, Bex and Sam.
Kia ora, good to be here.
Appreciate you joining. Bex, maybe we'll start with you. What first sparked your journey into AI in education?
All right, so I've been in the education game for 20 years and I jumped out of being in a school after being a deputy principal into a facilitation space. And so that started off in the digital realm. So I was doing work with teachers around integrating digital technology into their schools, and then moved into more of a leadership, working with leaders space. And just naturally, because I was always into digital technology, as soon as AI started making its way into the world, I just naturally was drawn to it and going, oh my gosh, what is this? This looks exciting. And then got pulled in. We had a big conference overseas and we needed a speaker, and I'd been having conversations with the leaders and around AI just casually, and they said, can you just do something on AI? And so I very nervously got up in front of like 150 principals and started talking about AI, and they were just so excited about it. And from there, I thought, gosh, this is going to have a massive impact on education. And basically, it's just steamrolled from there.
That's awesome. I'm pleased to hear that there's some positive sentiment around the transformation, what that's coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely in that space. Well, there's also other stuff, but we'll talk about that later.
Of course. Sam, what about yourself? What sparked your journey?
Yeah, similar to Bex, really. I was doing a bit of a PD session for a school, and at that point, I didn't know much about it at all. And I sort of heard this chat about ChatGPT, and just during the session on the fly, we decided we'd bring it up and try a bit of lesson planning. And sort of right before my eyes and right before the teacher's eyes, we were creating lesson plans in 10 seconds. And from that moment, I knew, man, this is going to be big in education as well. So from that point, really went on a journey of trying to learn as much as I could. I'm always passionate in terms of trying to help out educators and enhance what you can do in the classroom. And it was pretty clear that was the next big thing.
Wicked. Awesome. And so AI Surge, do you want to tell us a bit more about that, Bex? How does that work? How are you helping schools and businesses rethink how they work, and what's the mission behind what you're building?
Yeah, cool. So I decided, I hit 41 and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go out and buy a sports car, or I'm going to start a business. So I went with the business option. And so basically our mission is just to get in front of as many people as possible to share the AI word, because it's something that's not going away, right? So it's this massive tidal wave. You can either surf it or you're going to get swallowed up by it. So it's purely coming from our passion and dedication to being able to enhance how people are working in both businesses and in schools, and just streamlining their productivity so that they can get back to their fundamentals or their strategic goals, rather than just being bogged down with all the admin. So it's been really fun because I've had this education background, but have realized that it can be completely transferred into the business space. And even though there's a bit of imposter syndrome there, because I was a teacher with a Bachelor of Education, it's been really exciting.
So do you find that your credibility as an educator means that your course kind of management and training of businesses is almost more second nature than perhaps those who don't have an education background?
I guess I really do feel like that's our point of difference. Like this can be quite a big subject to get your head around. And I literally just take it back to what I know about how people learn, and that's around being hands-on, throw in a bunch of analogies so that it sounds like it's something that they can relate to, and just that personable sort of approach and just really hands-on stuff. And even today I was on a webinar and still managed to get 100 people chatting away around it. I think it's just that way that I've been brought up in the education system, where I can engage people to want to learn.
Awesome. And then Sam, what about you? When you talk to school leaders, what's the biggest, mindset shift that they need to make when they think about AI and bringing it into schools?
Yeah, I think the first thing is it's here and it's not going away, and it's happening very, very fast. So students are using it, whether the principals or the school leaders like it or not. So I think from that point, it's really about, how do we embrace it? one is as teachers in schools use it to our advantage, but then moving into how do we really help our students to use it well and responsibly and to help them enhance their learning journey as well. So I think what we've been doing in the workshops is really showing teachers how they can be more efficient and use it in their roles. But with recent changes to age restrictions with things like Google Gemini at the moment, now it really becomes about how can we actually help our students use it really well? Because no doubt they're probably using it already. So that next step of like, this is what really good prompting looks like. And then being able to help our students really critically analyze the outputs that are coming back at them as well.
You must see some pretty fascinating situations where the students are running ahead of the teachers, right? Because they're digital natives by nature. And I'm sure there are plenty of teachers who are also digital natives too. But as kids, they just pick things up, they figure it out quickly, and they're running with it. For better or for worse, there's obviously a lot of risks with that. But at the same time, it's also quite exciting to think about the experimentation and innovation that they can come up with, provided the right guardrails are in place, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think that digital native idea is pretty interesting as well, because sometimes you see them, they can like use TikTok and all those things really well, but some, not all, but some students, it might be about how can you actually use the tools to help you with your learning, and that's where things get a little bit different. And so that's where teachers really need to use their expertise to bring them along on that journey as well. So yeah, it does become a bit of a two-way street of where students can learn from their teachers naturally, but also where teachers can learn from the students. And I've seen it before, AI, just in terms of digital technology use in the classroom. So that's just going to go to the next level again as we see kind of what I would imagine is this term of AI native will eventually come through as well.
And I suppose in terms of, you work for Noel Leeming, do you see much resistance from the way schools engage with you because you are a supplier of technology or of product? Like there's obviously a motive to what you're doing, you're teaching so they can build a relationship with Noel Leeming, which is completely honourable. But do you feel that resistance at all in any way?
Yeah, I'm quite lucky. I'm always wary of that. So I make it really clear that my background is as a teacher, and then I worked for Google for a little bit of time there as well, and then came back into this role. And I suppose I'm lucky because I've actually never done a quote in my life. I lead our team strategically and everyone else is selling the things, where I like to get out there. And our vision as a education sector as well is how can we actually enhance learning through technology solutions as well, because it makes it a lot easier when you're talking to a school and you're saying, well, at the end of the day, this is going to make a difference to student learning because of X and Y. And at the end of the day, for a school, their return on investment when they're buying technology is enhanced student learning. So that's where I like to think I come in to say, look, this is all the cool stuff you can do, and partnering with the likes of Bex and AI Surge to show, like, buy the technology, but without that sort of professional development, it becomes a little bit of waste of money unless you're using it really well. So I'm really passionate about making sure that schools and teachers are using the technology in the right way. And from now, that also includes AI and how to use that really effectively in the classroom as well.
Yeah, at the end of the day, AI is just a technology. I mean, it is powerful, but it's still a technology which requires change management and making humans unlearn old behaviors and learn brand new behaviors in some way, shape, or form. So you've got to motivate people and give them the right incentives and make sure that the incentives work towards the broader kind of individual's objectives, but also the organization's objectives at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Bex, can you share a couple of real-world examples of where AI has been meaningful for the teachers in schools that you're working with? Like, what sort of learning outcomes are you seeing, or workload reduction are you seeing that schools are experiencing?
Yeah, I think we lean on the whole, it makes your life fast track your planning and all that kind of stuff. But there's actually so much more to it that is way more impactful for our schools. So I have seen the teachers are using AI to help sort of almost unblock that mental, to get that cognitive brain going and getting some new ideas of how we're going to teach our kids and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes you do sit there and maybe it's been a massive day and you're trying to think of how you're going to engage the kids the next day. And so utilizing AI to help you with that is a really awesome way to use AI. But I think the thing I'm most passionate about is personalized learning for the kids. So we've always known, like John Hattie has done all this work on what makes the biggest impact on student learning, right? And so we've always looked at that and gone, right, one-to-one tutoring, that's always, or one-to-one teaching is the most impactful on students' learning. And that's just been completely unobtainable because, you know, you can't have 25 teacher aides in a class and a teacher, right? That's never going to work. So, but with AI, we can actually create little personalised tutors for our kids that will meet them at their curriculum level, that will know how they learn, that will know that they love NRL, or they love some sort of sport, and that really then makes the learning at their level, right? So instead of having to teach, you've got 28 kids in your class and you've got levels 1 to 4, like going in the middle, you're going to get the kids that are bored and you're going to get the kids that have no idea what the heck is going on. So being able to create a little tutor that meets them at where they're at is just going to be a game changer. And in fact, there's already schools popping up all over the States called alpha schools. Now, alpha schools are, I believe, is where we're heading, right? So we've got these schools that are set up where the kids have their own personalised tutor for 2 hours every morning, AI personalised tutor. So they know where they're at in their curriculum level. They know what the next learning step is, all that kind of stuff. Then in the afternoon, the kids get to go outside. They run around, they do PE, they have cross-curricular type projects where they can really get their hands dirty and work collaboratively with their peers. And how cool does that sound? You know, like I remember during COVID, my personal kids, they got their work done so fast in the mornings. They got exactly what they need to get from their teachers. Thankfully, our teachers were incredible with their COVID learning. And then my son was outside playing in the backyard for the rest of the day and creating forts and making marble runs and doing all that kind of thing. So yeah, it's pretty exciting if that's where we're going to move to.
Absolutely. And you know, if the agent can basically predict based on the inputs from the student or where the curriculum is going and start to accelerate their learning or predict or forecast what they should be taught next. So it's more kind of proactive rather than reactive to the way that the student's being taught. I think it's going to be awesome. And even having all that free time back, how cool is that for a kid? I mean, that's the promises of AI and technology at the end of the day. I'd be curious to see how quickly we could realize those benefits. Right?
Yeah, well, they already are in the States. Like those alpha schools are popping up everywhere. And I'm in contact with them. There is a charter school in New Zealand that is looking at bringing one here. So I'm trying to help out with that because I'm really passionate about it.
Oh, good on you. And Sam, you've been, I guess, vocal in the past about the importance of AI literacy for kids and what does good AI literacy look like? Because for one student, it might be very different to another, and AI literacy can be quite ambiguous, right? So how do you think about that topic?
Yeah, I think at the start of it, it's just really how do we help our kids to be really good prompt engineers or use prompting really well, so that, like, you might often hear people use an AI tool and they get an outcome and they say, oh, it's not giving me what I want. But if you go back and actually look at what they prompted the AI tool to do, it's all about the prompt and the quality of that. So whatever framework you're using to prompt, making sure that it's putting the steps in to give you a really good quality output. So I think if we can teach our kids about prompting, and again, we've been working with teachers to go through that a lot, and now it's about teaching the students that as well. From that point, I think it's really, really important, as we touched on, to critically analyze those prompts and say, is that what I was actually going for? And that in itself requires a bit of base knowledge about a subject as well. So it's really important to know what you're trying to get out of your AI prompt so you can critically analyze it, see if it's fair, ethical, and all that sort of stuff. And then from point after that, it would be thinking about maybe how do we become sort of literate with AI to really fluent with it, where we start to potentially create with it rather than just consume the information we're getting as well. And I think that's going to be a real powerful thing in the classroom, is creating with AI. Now we're seeing coding just through natural language, and it's really going to lean into those creative skills that we're trying to promote with our students as well, to allow them to now code and do all that sort of stuff without actually knowing to code, but just using really good natural language and prompting.
I suppose we could really end up in a world where there's sort of two speeds, and similar to how we see it in schools today, where some kids are really strong in maths, some aren't, some are really strong in English, some aren't, so on and so forth, and you kind of get bucketed, unfortunately. I wonder if we'll move into a space where you're either really good at prompting, which helps you get the outputs you need for the topic that you're focusing on, or you might need some additional support and your prompting skill set isn't as strong, because ultimately it's just English and communication at the end of the day, but it's knowing how to use that English and communication to the best of your abilities to get the output required. So we could start to see those types of separations happening, I suppose, within kids in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I suppose what you want to avoid as well, and from an equitable point of view, and why I think it's a good thing that we've got our sort of focus on literacy and numeracy at those, especially at the younger year levels, like you just nailed it. You need to have that base level of writing and being able to do the prompts and maths to be able to analyze things as well. So really having that solid base level before you even really start to talk about prompting or anything like that is going to be so important. So if we don't get that right, then we've got issues around equity in terms of how students might be able to use those AI tools in the future as well.
And so much of that learning English comes down to the teachers. Bex, do you worry that AI will replace teachers, or do you think that's the wrong question to be asking?
I don't think it's going to replace teachers, but I do firmly believe that the way in which we conduct our classrooms will look different. So very similar to business in the sense where you can see where you're going to have a business lead that has agents that then look after the HR or the marketing and blah, 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 and you have all these different agents that are going to, that essentially a human's going to manage. I see a very similar sort of scenario in education where you have the teacher that looks after the personalised tutors. I think the cool thing with the personalised tutors is that they can give almost a screen grab or a transcript of the students' interactions with the bot. So then they can actually really authentically see where they perhaps may have some gaps that they need to fill in. So I think that whole conductor sort of thing, which means that our teachers can specialize in the things that they're really that they've got gifts in, It certainly wouldn't have been maths for me as a kid, as a teacher. That was not my jam, but I would absolutely love to grow the kids in English and literacy. That was my jam. So being able to put the teachers in the right places as well within the school.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sam, do you have a view on how that might shake out and whether we risk losing teachers as well?
Yeah, very similar to Bex. Clearly teachers, they won't lose their job, but I think the ones who can use AI really effectively in their classrooms will be the top-notch teachers as well. And like Bex touched on, it's because they become that conductor of the classroom. And if you've got GMs or agents and things in different parts of the class, or you're setting up those individualized learning opportunities for your students, you need that mission control, which is the teacher. And then at the end of the day, something that AI is not going to do very well is really get to know those students. And that's what teachers are really, really good at, and sort of emotionally connecting with them. The other big thing for me, I think, is more of these AI tools come out and automating certain tasks. I think when we look into the future, it's really going to be those communication skills that become increasingly more important as well. So teachers to be able to focus on that and support their kids through all those communication skills as well will be really important. But yeah, if you can, like Beck said at the start, for me as well, it's about the future has to be, the holy grail is individualized learning for every student to meet them where they're at their interest, and to be able to do that and use AI to your advantage as a teacher to do that, then that's where we'll see some real awesome learning in the classroom.
Absolutely. And the teachers are basically the linchpin to making sure that these kids end up with the education they need, which in theory is most likely going to need AI moving forward. So good to hear that we're not going to lose teachers. They're certainly an important part of the process moving forward to make sure that this technology is rolled out successfully. And Bex, I suppose, pivoting from schools to businesses, you work quite closely with businesses. Can you tell us a bit more about what you do in that space?
Yeah. So do you know what? It's really similar from education to business, right? So essentially what happens is that a leader within a company or a leader within a school reaches out and goes, hey, this AI stuff, this is going bananas. What do we do with this? And so you have a conversation with them around what it is, how it can support their business or their school or whatever it is. And then I always find the next best step is actually to give the leadership team a bit of a leg up. So giving them a little bit of work, a little bit of support in how they can utilize AI in their roles so that they feel like they've got a bit of mana in the space, right? They feel like they've got a bit of an understanding. From there, it's really good to then get a whole staff approach. So everyone is then on the walker. Everyone's rowing the same way. They know the same language. They've heard the same crazy Bex analogies, all those different things that makes AI kind of make sense. And then from there, it's really identifying the key early adopters or the ones that are really showing enthusiasm within the business or within the school that can drive that traction in the school without me being there, So that ripple effect, as soon as you start having these people doing cool stuff, others are going, hey, hang on. Like, what is they doing, And it just naturally gets everyone on the dance floor, right? Everyone's like, cool, this sounds really fun. And then just making sure you have those key accountability check-ins especially with how fast things are coming out, right? So we were in ISTE in USA like 2 weeks ago, and Google dropped all this massive bomb of all this cool stuff that's coming out. And so just that's a game changer in the schools and the businesses that I'm working in that are utilizing gems. It's like, wow, now we can share the gems. Now we can do all this other cool stuff. So being able to have those checkpoints each sort of quarter or term so that we can keep everyone up to date and just keep driving that traction.
Awesome. And out of interest, are you seeing many businesses who don't have an AI champion or someone who doesn't gravitate towards the technology, and you have to almost conjure someone or find someone and kind of convince them, go, hey, hang on, do you want to get on board and I'll help you?
Yeah, no, actually not yet. However, I still think we're in this, we're still in that almost in that early adopter stage of businesses, of schools. So we still have the ones that we're working with are the ones that are really sort of excited, right? So when Sam and I started these summits, we had the keen beans, like they were there a year ago, they were ready to go, and they were, ready to drive traction within their schools at that stage. And we're kind of seeing more now, people are going, okay, this ain't going away. Like, we better get on this bandwagon. I can see it's happening. So I think we're still in that phase. I think we haven't quite hit that laggard or that space where we have to really go, or get them pushed in to it. So yeah, I haven't encountered anyone that's really heavily against it. I mean, you always have the questions, like no matter what. Even just last week in Melbourne, I was having questions from people, some pretty hard hitting questions, but thankfully we've been in this area, we've got the answers for them, which makes them feel more comfortable. And it's that whole, you don't know what you don't know, right? So that whole change leadership, change management space, it's really important to have those skills that sit on top of this, because it is a massive change. And so being able to get everyone on the walk rowing the same way is super important.
I would love to know, what is the most common question or questions you get?
We're always in education is, how do we spot the cheaters? How do we spot the children who are cheating? Hey, Sam.
Yeah, and hopefully it's getting less and less now there, but yeah, a huge issue for schools, and yeah, it opens up some bigger questions about, are we assessing the right thing, and should we be assessing just the end goal, or should we be more focused on the process to get there, which more likely than not, as we head into the future, is going to involve some sort of AI tool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if either of you see sort of, there are some business leaders or schools that are more open to experimenting with AI. I mean, differences between businesses and schools. There's a different outcome at the end of the day for an organization versus a school and what they're trying to achieve. But
yeah, I was just gonna touch on that before, actually. Like the transferable skills, or like what you're actually showing a school or a business, is very, very similar. It's just the outputs are different. Where we've already mentioned for a school, it's all about the goal of how can you enhance learning for those students so that they can be more successful in the future. Where for a business, it might be, how can we become more efficient to drive our bottom line? So the output or the end result is different, but the process to get to those things and using those tools is very, very similar. So the transferable nature of talking to a business audience or a school audience is very, very similar.
Fascinating. And out of interest, a general question here, New Zealand schools, are they primarily Google tooling, or are they Microsoft tooling? How does that split usually work, and why would one school go with Microsoft over Google or another?
I could take that one, Beck. So what we see is, very New Zealand, well, Google has done a really, really good job in New Zealand, where most schools are using Google for education, but the schools that aren't might be using Microsoft, and then depending what devices they use, some use iPads, Chromebooks, Windows devices, but at the end of the day, so many of them are using Google Workspace for education. So a lot of our work or the sessions focus on those, but we're also tailor it into asking that audience, if you're using Microsoft, then we're not necessarily creating gems within Gemini, which are kind of their personalized chatbots, but in Microsoft with Copilot, we might be creating Copilot agents. So there's much in a muchness, but yeah, we're seeing within that Google space, there's some pretty awesome tools like Notebook LM and get gems with Gemini and all that sort of stuff. And like Bex was saying before there, with ISTE happening in the States recently, there's some pretty awesome updates too, which we're excited to work with schools across the country to explore those as well.
I think also, Mike, I'll just jump in there because I was doing work across the ditch. Australia's different. So I'd say the majority of them are on Microsoft. And so in New Zealand, the schools are really, really lucky because the Ministry of Education actually pay for licenses for every single teacher and every single kid on Google or Microsoft. And they can actually have dual tenancies as well. So, but Google is definitely far greater here than it is in Australia. And so, it's really interesting hearing the passion for Microsoft in Australia because it's just not the same over here, and as Sam said, it's much of a muchness at the end of the day, but I think Google, especially in education, is just so easy to use, like between us three, we've been doing a Google Doc and we can collaborate and we can add comments and things like that, which is, it's just so easy for kids especially.
And you said it before, Mike, sorry as well, that it's a tool at the end of the day. But everything else in terms of prompting and AI literacy and all those sort of things, it's the same regardless of what tool you're using. So you can adapt, and most big players in that tech space are going to have a similar tool or an AI tool that can actually give you an output from a really good prompt anyway.
Yeah, 100%. And I suppose on the trans-Tasman piece there, Bex, how do you compare, I suppose, the New Zealand schooling adoption of AI and parents and teachers compared to Australian? Are there any differences, or are we as similar as a lot of us think?
Well, it has been really interesting because I did ISTE in America. And so I thought I was going to head over there and they'd be like way ahead of us with everything. I thought I'm going to go over there and learn a million things and it's going to be so cool. And I'm going to bring it back to New Zealand. But I think what I learned the most was that actually what we're delivering over here is on par. We was even saying some of the same words, like it was very on par with what we are delivering for professional development for teachers over here. But I would say the difference, and the same in Australia, is that the departments of education, the districts, the ministries of education in Australia and USA have put out guidelines and procedures for the schools to follow. So that's given them the guardrails to really get their teeth, sink their teeth into it, and off they go. In New Zealand, we haven't had that. So it means that every school is having to develop their own guidelines and their own procedures and their own sort of guardrails. There's very loose, low touch type guidelines from the ministry, which is kind of like our AI strategy, I guess, as well, the New Zealand AI strategy. But there's some schools and some principals, rightly or wrongly, really want to make sure that they are sitting in the box that has been told by the ministry of what needs to be, what cannot be used or what can be used. And so some are kind of waiting for that to be able to then jump in and give it a whirl. So my recommendation is to actually create some of your own, so that's contextualized to your school as well, because every school is going to have different guardrails anyway. Otherwise, they're just going to be left behind, and waiting for a set of rules from the ministry is just going to be, they're going to start, getting left behind 100%.
Well, I think also that if there are teachers at that school who are seeing that the transformation is heading that way, they'll end up leaving the school to go to a school where they can be enabled and have the capabilities and the resources where they can basically pursue what they believe is to be the future. And we're seeing that all over the place in business. There are people who are leaving companies in droves because they've built a workflow that has displaced part of someone's role, and they got told to go sit back in the corner and do their job. And I can imagine that would be happening in schools and with parents where they might send their kid where the school hasn't adapted to AI, or the teachers aren't adapting to AI, and they say, bugger it, I'm going to take my kids somewhere where they see the future as well.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that that's also vice versa. Like there's still some people that are like, we don't want our kids to learn AI, and they're quite happy with the school for saying no devices. You must shut your lids and you're back to pen and paper. But where's the future in that? I can't see it myself. But I guess it's that whole, it goes back again to anything new, anything change, right? Some people are going to take the bull by the horns and off they go, and others just need to see how it goes before they jump in on it. It's just anything change.
It's a hard one, right? Because you have to kind of respect people's decisions to not pursue it or jump into it, or to have their boundaries and say, I'm not going to expose my kid to it, and completely respect that. But I think the the asymmetric upside of making sure your child is future-proofed for what is happening and what will continue to happen is it's going to be more detrimental than positive, I would say, if your child isn't at least exposed to it in a healthy way. It's sort of like if you have a beer with your dad when you're 15, right? In a kind of a safe environment versus you going behind the school shed or the bike shed.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of exposure to something where you're being led by someone who can control or give you some parameters to operate with them.
I love that you use that analogy because I often use that same thing as well. But, or you might just say, like, if you want to teach your kid to cross the road, you just don't ignore it. You teach them how to do it safely, right? And that's always been the case with technology. But I think what an interesting point that's come out of that discussion is if you look at that sort of parent, teacher, student triangle, like we can't forget to educate the parents as well, because a lot of parents out there might not even know what AI is, or they might just see what's written in the media sometimes and think, oh, I can't let my kid use that because it's just cheating. So it's, I think, a really important part of that is schools and working with parents to demystify it and actually let parents know what it's all about and why they might be using it in school and why they might be working with the kids to show what they can do with it in the future as well, because none of us grew up with AI. So all the parents are in the same boat. So they have to go through that education piece as well to really support their students. And like you say, it's not hiding behind the bike sheds to have a drink. It's actually like, I understand this and let's work with you to make the most of it.
Yeah, we might use that, Mike. Thanks. We might use that one.
Maybe not the beer drinking one, but something else. It's even like, people use the calculator as a really good analogy. And I think it's the right type of analogy in terms of principally speaking, because the change was valuable to teach people how the nature of math is valuable, but you don't need to know the ins and outs forever. You were going to use a calculator moving forward. The difference is that the calculator started off as very expensive and it was a limited tool. And so it took more time for people to understand how to use it and even to get access to it because it was expensive. It took decades to proliferate amongst schools, but you've now got your best data assistant for $20 in your pocket and whatever other insert title you have. So the proliferation is going to happen so much faster. It's the cat is out of the bag, so to speak. You may as well give people the tools in the right way and guide them on how to use it rather than sort of letting it proliferate either outside of the parental or the teacher's control or for the kid just to bypass this opportunity altogether.
Yeah, you said the calculator. And how often did we get told at school that, well, you're never going to have a calculator in your back pocket later? And now we've all got one all the time. So, it's really, really interesting. And you even see it with, I suppose, Google now. You're starting to see, even when you do a Google search, that it's becoming like AI-generated responses. So, it's really interesting to think it's not going to be that long where we're not Googling stuff, where we're Geminiing it or whatever the term might be. And if people aren't doing that already. So I know for me personally, it's you got to get out of that mode of what you're always used to and using Google, because then sometimes if I go to Gemini and type in my question and prompt that, then the outcome I get is so much more informative.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose, Sam, for teachers and school leaders listening right now, like what are some of the first steps that you recommend for them to confidently bring AI into their classroom and even into the staff room, I suppose?
Yeah, I suppose I've got two separate answers depending on if it's school leaders or teachers. I think for the school leaders, Bex touched on it already. I think it is really important that they quickly move to set up AI policy and guidelines for their schools, because we haven't got anything yet from the ministry or official docs, but we can work to outline something that's in place for our schools. And the reason you want to do that is we see it all the time that there's so many teachers that might want to dive and get stuck into it, but they're just so worried that they're going to do something wrong or put all the data into a large language learning model and get in trouble, I suppose. So what's the guardrails? Why are we using that? All that sort of stuff in our AI policy and guideline doc. Because another thing we see all the time is, because I suppose Chat GPT was the first thing that people associated AI with. So there's still so many teachers out there that will just go out and use the free version of Chat GPT. They don't understand that the feed, like all that data is going out there and it's not in a secure environment. So then if school leader can put a policy in place that says, look, we're a Google school, we're a Microsoft school, we've got enterprise data protection across that. We're not feeding the big AI machine out there, then that's going to build a bit of confidence to allow the teachers to then experiment and run with things as well. So if that's in place, and then as a teacher, then use the right tools and just get stuck and learn new things. And from that point, really, hopefully the school can engage with professional development to use that in a way that's going to be really impactful in the classroom as well. So really important on the guidelines, and that's sort of hopefully happening now, and something that we're going to touch on a lot through the second half of this year. And then teachers can feel that freedom to go for it in a safe and secure environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the biggest challenge, is that people don't feel confident using the tool because of all the uncertainty, and that's because they haven't just been given someone hasn't drawn a line in the sand to say, this is how you should use it and this is how you shouldn't use it. Go and experiment within these rules and these confines, but do not do X, Y, and Z, to make it super simple for people.
Mm.
And I suppose, Bex, what's one thing or one skill that you think every student should master for an AI-powered world, if you were to boil it down to one or two things?
A skill. I think it's just that natural language, like being able to articulate what they're thinking and their creativity in their brains, being able to put it down onto paper, because that's essentially where we're going to head, right? So it's about being able to articulate and critique and be creative in their thinking, because that's what's going to really enhance their use of AI later on.
Awesome. Great way to end it. I do have a quick fire round for both of you, so maybe we'll jump from Bex to Sam, but I'll ask the question first. Are you up for it?
Yeah, let's go.
Right, Bex, ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini?
Gemini all day.
Sam?
Gemini.
Gemini, fair enough. Bex, most overhyped AI trend at the moment?
Oh my gosh. I'm just going to kind of make this a little bit long-winded. The amount of tools that are flooding our market that are going to help our teachers, like try this, pay this, do this, blah, blah. Like, don't fall in the trap of paying for tools. Like, I think it's just learn how to prompt effectively. You've got all these tools at your fingertips, like Gemini. You could just nail them off before. Don't pay for tools. You learn how to prompt.
I tend to agree. Like, when I first started following the space, when GPT came out, I was buying and signing up for stuff all the time, and then quickly realized it would only do 30% of the job, and then I have to buy another tool to stitch it together with something else. Whereas, okay, there might be a bit more copy-paste tax between GPT and models and Gemini and whatnot, but at least I'm not wasting money, and I kind of can rely on the outputs a bit more, and I can trust the data, and I can customize the system instructions through the LLMs and the frontier models, right?
Yeah, 100%.
What about you, Sam? Most overhyped AI trend?
Yeah, probably the picture generation stuff, when we were putting ourselves in the toy boxes at that point. But I will follow that up by saying what a real positive out of that is that people would have seen what a really good quality prompt looks like to create something, and the image was wrong, then I needed to change this prompt here or there, or go back and nearly engage in a bit of kind of vibe coding to go back and refine that instruction. So
this is coming from the guy that created himself as a fly fisherman. So sorry, or drone fisherman. You want a pot kettle black, mate?
We all did it.
As you say, quite a good byproduct. People learn what crap looked like.
Yeah, like a 50-year-old woman as opposed to a 40-year-old.
Bex, one New Zealand company quietly doing great AI work.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I actually want to call out some of the incredible principals that are taking the bull by the horns and getting in there, getting their hands dirty, trying it out, finding new things. Like, I've got a couple of incredible principals out there that have been working with me, and I drop a little seed and they go away and they are creating some incredible things, like interactive curriculum for their teachers, or a induction book for the new teachers that come in that they can just chat with, things like that. So I'm just going to shout out to all the cool principals that are just getting in there and getting their hands dirty with it.
Super cool. What about you, Sam? Any schools or companies doing great AI work on the down low?
Yeah, so there's so many good schools like that are really getting stuck in and doing all sorts. So many of those to name. I suppose with businesses, what I'm a little bit jealous of is those kind of smaller or startups who can just be really flexible with their tools and need all these AI tools. I'm meeting with, you've probably seen him online, Blake, on Thursday, and he's from Christchurch, but I follow his stuff of where they, in a real estate mode. They're just taking photos and then using AI to make the walkthroughs and things like that. So it's cool just seeing the young people come up and showing cool ways to do things like that much more efficiently, and I'd say cost-wise much cheaper as well.
Awesome. Well, Blake was the guest before yourselves on the podcast.
Brilliant. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to chatting. And this is the beauty of things like LinkedIn. I don't know him, but yeah, we reached out, and so we're going to catch up on Thursday. But yeah, definitely seeing the cool things that he does just in their tools for real estate is pretty awesome and just changing the game.
Wicked. Yeah, he's a smart cookie. And Bex, what's your number one recommendation for people to get started in AI?
Just give it a go. Like anything, it's gonna be a little bit messy to begin with. They're not going to be amazing when the prompts may not be amazing to begin with. But if you refine, I like to analogy for this is you don't marry the first person you go on a date with. So just keep going back to the prompt and refine it. One day you'll kiss that frog and it will be a prince. So get that prompting going and just give it a go.
Awesome. I love keeping it simple like that. And Sam, your number one recommendation, and I bet you it's not using ChatGPT image generator.
No, but that's the thing. If it's going to get you engaged in the process of it, then yeah, I'm all for it. So just make sure that you're doing it safely, or you're aware what you're putting in, or you're happy with whatever you're putting in terms of information. That one, if it's like a free version of Gemini, then it's going to feed the large language model. But if it's not, make sure that it's in that secure environment as well. But yeah, just get stuck in. And as you go on, then yeah, the beauty of it is it really does allow you to do things that you previously thought you couldn't do. So I'm not a coder by any means. And previous to AI, I would have said, I wish I could go back in time and learn to code. But now, if my daughter comes home and she's got a maths problem that she's struggling with, we can jump on like Gemini Canvas or on Canva and code up a game using natural language that will then create a game within minutes. That there's no way I could have done that 6 months ago. So I love the fact that it's opening up new doors, especially for people that are really creative, just to go and actually bring their ideas to life as well. And that's going to be something pretty awesome to watch as we move into the future as well.
Awesome. So many opportunities. But thank you to Bex and Sam for joining us today. And thank you to our listeners. Please subscribe to the channel for weekly episodes and to hear more from the people building New Zealand's AI future. Until next time, thanks for tuning into the AI Corner.